Okay, so what we'll be talking about today is deploying applications into Google Kubernetes Engine on GCP. We'll talk about some patterns, we'll talk about some tooling, and we'll talk about some general strategies and complexities that we've seen our clients run into and that you will tend to expect while deploying applications within GKE. So we have a quick agenda today. We're gonna quickly go through GKE and your applications. Really kind of talk about where the modern application sits today and where it's kind of going, and how that involves your planning for deploying your applications within GKE. Then we'll talk about some common deployment scenarios that we've observed and solidified within the industry as standard approaches to delivering your applications into an environment. And then probably why everyone's going to be really tuning into this today is the tooling. What tools are people using? What tools are doing what for their companies, and how it relates to deploying their applications effectively within GKE. And then we'll roll into some Q&A. Okay, I want to give a general background as to what GKE is and why it's a big deal, and why we at Root Level Technology are standing behind it as a core delivery pillar in terms of bringing your applications into a cloud native environment. Out of the gate, this is a fully managed Kubernetes platform from Google. Since this design pattern and operating paradigm originated from Google, and they are heavily vested in pushing the Kubernetes ecosystem forward, as well as being core contributors to the platform. You get the best of the best integration support and just overall experience within Kubernetes within Google's ecosystem. And since you're working within GCP, you get to experience all the great points of working within the Google ecosystem. So out of the gate, you have global scalability, and it's highly available from the get-go. You don't really have to do much to really take advantage of those feature sets. And like I said, best-of-class integration and support, because you are working on the core platform that originated this operating pattern and technology. And what a lot of people are really looking for is that enterprise readiness. We've successfully deployed and onboarded many enterprises within the GKE platform, and we're seeing great success with it. So the big talk of today in the modern age of public cloud and modern applications is this concept of cloud native applications. What that really means is applications built that will sustain a public cloud environment, as well as operating within those patterns and being tooled properly. GKE is positioned very well within that. It is built with that pattern from the onset. You're starting to see a lot of simple plug and play opportunities to allow you to really bring your applications into a cloud native environment and design pattern really quickly. The integration with Knative, which is the GKE serverless add-on that is getting baked into GKE today, that will be available probably mid-year from a production standpoint, as well as some of the core really really cool features in terms of managed STO. So you'll have a service mesh out of the gate without having all the heavy lifting to get it configured and working, as well as some really great security features and functionalities with GK policy management, and what was announced at Google Next last year, the opportunity to bring GKE on-prem. That's coming in really hot and heavy into the overall GKE ecosystem. Is really setting you up for a great cloud native experience. Why I'm harping on a cloud native application. This is where a lot of these deployment patterns are going to really shine, and understanding what they are and how it relates to your application is really important. So I wanted to give the foundation of why this is here and what we're talking about. So now we're just going to kind of dig into some of the deployment scenarios and kind of what they are, how they relate to your applications, and how they relate to different application designs. So there's a few different common application patterns. We're seeing a lot of complex applications. Those are your traditional enterprise applications that are coming from your SOA architecture that aren't quite ready for the microservice haul, but are in a great place where they're getting containerized and ready to be onboarded into the Kubernetes ecosystem. And those are the better majority of the applications that we're seeing today within our client base. Then you have your microservice architectures, which has been in 2018, 2017, a huge increase towards a more distributed system. A shared nothing architecture is kind of what some people call it. So you're starting to see that really be complemented within the Kubernetes deployment patterns. And then also you're starting to see data pipelines getting pushed into a containerized workflow to better manage compute workloads and parallelize your data pipelines. And then obviously everyone's been hearing about the serverless movement. So you're starting to see features and functionalities like Knative enabling a functions as a service application pattern. I do also have on the line our VP of App Dev, Robert Bailey. He can go ahead and speak a little bit more to this slide and kind of his experiences within the application patterns that we're starting to see.
Yeah, no, and absolutely, and a lot of our clients that we work with, have a pretty strong interest in moving a lot of their older applications into the cloud, and then when you start looking at just straight, cloud native type of platforms, it becomes overwhelming very quickly, especially for older legacy applications. Being able to containerize them and move them into Kubernetes, kind of more of a lift and shift, kind of helps them with scalability, as well as kind of poises them to move into things like event-based architectures, as well as a service mesh. So that's generally kind of like what we look at, with the move, and then from there, being able to break apart a lot of these monolithic applications into microservices from that standpoint on. So it does absolutely help in the migration, and it's greatly simplifies the infrastructure that has to exist outside of Kubernetes. It
So Robert,
introduces
yeah,
security aspects and
sorry to cut you off, Robert,
yeah, no
but
problem.
I mean, you've been a developer for as long
23
as
years.
yeah, exactly. Can you talk to us about the issues that you used to experience deploying your applications and kind of how it's transgressed into how we're deploying applications within Kubernetes these days?
Absolutely. So traditionally, deploying applications, never sat on an engineer's plate or the developer at all. So you had two separate paths that would run inside of the enterprise. One, the engineers creating the applications, and two, the system administrators, supporting, the deployment, and just the general availability of those applications. So there was a very serious disconnect there, and communication was usually pretty faulty because they're very siloed teams traditionally. So Kubernetes kind of really helped kind of bridge that gap by introducing more of a DevOps type of experience for the engineer, being able to build something locally, being able to test it, and being able to deploy it in an environment that completely mimics the production environment. So this has helped in many ways. We don't have the communication issues between those two siloed teams, and two, it allows the engineers to move a little bit quicker because they have more ownership, as well as they tend to be a lot more confident in their deployments. So we've seen deployments move from those quarterly deployments or monthly deployments to something where an engineer is happier to deploy, even daily or multiple times a day because of the confidence they have, that it's going to run on the platform, and B, the ability to roll it back very, very quickly. Um, you know, this moved really to the natural progression of being able to allow engineers to experiment a little bit more. We've all kind of seen, different platforms blow up in the last 3 years. We've seen Istio come in. We've seen, you know, um, countless NoSQL databases. And before that, I mean, we really had to push, an infrastructure team to set it up, support it, and give us the thumbs up to use it. Now, engineers are able to use it very safely within the GKE environment, and be able to fully support it because with GKE, we can overcome performance issues or misconfigurations many times just by being able to scale out. We're also able to be a little bit more reactive to what the needs are to the business from an application engineering perspective, and that just helps us kind of evolve the business and move a lot quicker and iterate on business issues much faster.
Yeah, that's the key point of kind of what we want to talk about today is really that time to production and time to business value, really closing that feedback loop down. And I think these deployment scenarios that we're going to talk about here in a few seconds are really going to exemplify and show how we get to a shorter feedback loop and a better time to market. So there's four common deployment scenarios that we see in the market that are really used and talked about and implemented. So I'm gonna start at the old days back in the VM world, where you have your applications deployed on VMs. You don't really have a whole lot of flexibility. You're typically using what we would call an in-place upgrade. You have something like Jenkins or GitLab pushing out your binaries or your app code to all the nodes, potentially throwing up like a gone fishing page until the application is actually fully rolled out. And then once it's fully rolled out, you take that gone fishing page down and your users can continue using your application. You don't really see this very often anymore. You definitely don't see it within the containerized world. So within GKE, you really don't see this. Why I'm talking about it is it's good to understand what this pattern looks like, because it's easy to fall into this pattern when you're moving quickly, and when you're actually developing or integrating your deployment lifecycle for your application, uh, you can fall into this pretty quickly. So it's good to understand what it is and understand the caveats around it. What you see pretty much from a native application rollout strategy within Kubernetes is what is called a rolling deployment. So as you as a pod comes online, passes its health check, uh, the oldest pod rolls off and is taken down, and it basically rolls through the entire deployment process to your target replica set size. So if you're looking for uh, uh, 10 pods to be rolled out, it'll the the pattern will be is one pod will come up, one pod will come off until there's 10 pods running with the new version. The blue-green deployment pattern is you have two versions of the application deployed at the same time. Once you have the new version completely deployed alongside the old deployment, there's an update to either the ingress controller or the load balancer and points the traffic to the new version of your application. That's a little bit more of a matured version of a rolling deployment. So you start to see DevOps teams as they mature and grow. They're starting to implement blue-green deployments, and then kind of the catalyst of a full mature, like your true fully mature deployment strategy is what is called a canary deployment. So this is what you're really going to see within a cloud native or a microservice uh, environment where multiple versions of the application are running side by side, and it's taking a percentage of the traffic. And as good traffic continues, you continue dialing up the percentage of the traffic that version takes up until the point where it's taking 100% of the traffic, and you roll off the old version. This is where it's a very mature scenario and requires quite a bit of testing. Robert, in your eyes, kind of where do you see the industry as it sits today? Where do you see the majority of our clients setting in their deployment strategies and how they're rolling their applications out? And I think we may have lost Robert. Okay, well, we must have lost Robert for a second, so I'll just continue moving on and really kind of dig into what this really looks like, really dive into this and really kind of see how this is going. So, like I said, a blue-green deployment is this first block. You may hear it called a red-black deployment. This graphic is coming out of Spinnaker's deployment scenarios on how they implement their deployments. It's very similar to how Netflix rolls out their applications, since that is their core deployment tool that they use to roll out their applications. So the blue-green strategy, as it shows, you have two full versions of the application deployed. and the blue version is your old version that is being deployed, and green version is your new version. As the green version completely moves on, comes online, the load balancer traffic is directed. So a rolling deployment, you can see that as new pods come online, they start taking traffic, and the old pods start to roll off. That's a pretty standard way to deploy applications. This is the default way that applications get rolled out within Kubernetes. So if you do update your deployment inside GKE, that is exactly how your pods will get introduced into the cluster, and it will take traffic right away in that exact manner. And then a canary deployment, it looks very similar to a rolling deployment, but what you see happen is it's going to take a percentage of the traffic, and you continue dialing that up, or you can tie it into an APM tool like AppDynamics, for example. And as there are no errors or log issues coming in that you tie your canary analysis to, it continues increasing the traffic going into the new version. It looks like we have a question here. Just give me a second. Yes, I will definitely be sharing the slides, Stephen. That will get emailed out to all the registrations after we get through this. So. Okay, so just continuing to move on. So this is where a lot of the fun stuff is happening today. The deployment tool, the tools that are being used to deploy these applications inside GKE, there's a lot of movement going on. There's a lot of innovation. So I'm super excited to kind of start talking about this. So the old these are the core tools that you're starting to see really handle application deployments within a containerized environment. There's a ton more. These are the tools that we typically engage with within RLTs, professional service engagements, as well as advisory engagements on helping our clients better deploy their applications. So as always, Jenkins is in the list, typically because it's already in one's environment. So leveraging that through custom scripting with integrating Helm to manage your deployments of your applications within GKE is a pretty common thing. Same with GitLab. Spinnaker is a tool that you may or may not have heard of. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but it is a tool that originated from Netflix and starting to get a lot of hype and a lot of steam. And then CodeFresh, we at RLT, we partner with CodeFresh as a SaaS-based solution to simplify and cleanly deploy your applications within GKE or any other Kubernetes environment. And one that is a huge up and coming deployment tool leveraging artificial intelligence and machine learning is harness.io. It's coming out of the founder and the creator of AppDynamics, getting into the continuous delivery space. That's something that you definitely want to keep an eye out for, and there's going to be a lot of movement coming out of them this year. So kind of talking about Spinnaker and getting a little deeper into it. This is a tool that I'm most passionate about right now. I've been doing a lot of work with it here lately. It really has some really baked in advanced deployment strategies. It's very easy to work with it. Once it's all set up and rolling, you can start deploying your applications pretty quickly and in a very advanced way. So Canary deployments is a checkbox away. The part about it that I like about it, that has been very helpful for me for my engagements, is something they call a canary analysis. It's an automated analysis process during your canary deployment that you tie into either your APM tooling or any monitoring that you have, that automatically increases your rollout based on the health of the deployment. So if it's not taking load very well, it'll back it out and automatically roll it back. It's a really cool feature. It's been very helpful for me, and I'm just really happy to be able to talk about it. The other nice thing, from my perspective, I'm a big supporter of open source software. Spinnaker is an open source solution that's heavily backed by Google as well as Netflix. This is how Netflix deploys their applications in production. You're seeing a lot of big names really leverage Spinnaker to deploy their applications inside the public cloud. The caveat is it originated out of Netflix, and the Netflix paradigm of microservice everything is definitely there. This is a lot of moving parts to get things rolling, but once you get it working, it's a really great solution. So you have your old CI/CD tools, Jenkins and GitLab. They're pretty ingrained into people's environments, and it's usually kind of the path of least resistance to start really kind of deploying their applications. The caveat here is you have to roll your own deployments with scripts. We've been leveraging a solution called Helm very extensively in these scenarios. It's not a tool that's 100% focused on deployment, so you have to kind of use your imagination. You have to really use your engineering skills to make it work in the manner that you want it to. But it's a common thing that people are familiar with, so it's a really great place to kind of start. And the opportunity to shove everything into code, leveraging a pipeline as code strategy is a great way to really manage your application deployments. So kind of rolling into the commercial solutions, CodeFresh and Harness, they both support advanced deployment strategies. They're all baked into their platforms. They're both SaaS-based offerings. They're both 100% focused on deploying applications, so they're not trying to go out of bounds too much. They're focusing on one problem and doing a really good job at delivering with it. Kubernetes deployments are first-class citizens within their platforms, so either of them are going to be really great at handling deploying to your GKE clusters, and they both support a pipeline as code strategy. So I've been talking a lot about GKE and kind of the strategies of how we've been working with it. Kind of want to talk a little bit about the relationship between RLT and Google. We've been really focused on the Google platform over the past year and a half, really diving into it within our professional services engagements, and we've successfully became a Google Cloud partner over over our engagements, we've migrated and automated hundreds of applications, as well as getting very, very large production clusters deployed and supported. And through those endeavors, we've really kind of grown a team of dedicated Kubernetes experts. So coming out of that, there's been some really, really amazing offerings and opportunities that we've been able to provide. So a fully managed Google Cloud Service offering, which includes infrastructure as code with Terraform, managing your GKE environment, as well as the rest of your cloud ecosystem. This is definitely something that if you're currently talking to one of our account executives, bring it up to them, figure out what it's all about, get on the phone with one of our solution engineers, and we can really find something that works out for you. And then obviously our professional services opportunities around GKE, where we sit down with you, plan out what you guys need, really detail it out, go through right alongside you, deploy the environment, deploy your applications, figure out how you need to manage it, and train you up and help you support it. Some really great opportunities and offerings to collaborate within this really exciting ecosystem. Just take your time, reach out. We'll be there as a partner to help you. So that's really all I have. If there's any questions, we can go ahead and field a few of those out now. I have a nice email address for you guys to reach out to for anything around getting some scheduled time with us. So you can reach out to cloudsales@rootleveltech.com, and one of our account reps will get back to you and get on a call. Let's see if there's any questions.
That was good. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, no.
Sorry, Jason.
No, I appreciate everyone joining, taking your time. I know for some it's early, some it's during your lunch hour, some it's mid-afternoon. So just really appreciate people taking their time. Well, cool. Doesn't look like there's any questions for us today. I will go ahead and get this webinar published and shared out, and we will definitely get the slides kicked out to everyone that is registered.
That'd be awesome. Thanks, Jason.
Yep. Bye.
Bye-bye.